Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will flip the way you see avoidant love forever. Most people believe that avoidants don't want love. They think that if someone pulls back, withdraws, goes silent, or suddenly builds walls, it must mean they don't care. But what if I told you that couldn't be further from the truth? What if I told you that avoidants actually want love just as deeply as anyone else, but in a way so unique, so misunderstood, that unless you understand it, you'll keep pushing them further away instead of pulling them closer? Here's the shocking truth: avoidants are not cold, heartless, or incapable of intimacy. They are people who, deep down, crave the safety, the warmth, and the stability of love, yet the very intensity of it terrifies them. Imagine a person who has been burned by fire before. They want its warmth, they long for its glow. But every time they get too close, they remember the pain. So they step back, not because they don't want it, but because they want it so much that the risk of losing it feels unbearable. And here's where most people go wrong. They try to chase harder, they try to convince, they try to prove love. But what the avoidant actually wants is not your chase, not your convincing, not your over-explaining. What they want is something entirely different, something so simple and so powerful that once you give it, the dynamic changes forever. That's what today's message is all about. What do avoidants actually want from you? Not the surface-level guesswork, not the false assumptions, but the raw, unfiltered truth that cracks open the mystery of avoidant love. Because the moment you understand what they truly desire, you stop fighting against their walls and start creating the kind of connection they can finally lean into. So today, I'm going to break it down into 6 powerful keys. Each one will reveal a hidden truth about avoidant love. Each one will unlock a part of their heart they've been guarding for years. And if you're ready, really ready, to shift the way you see relationships forever, then lean in, because this is the moment everything changes. Avoidants desperately want something that seems like a contradiction. They want closeness without pressure. They want intimacy without the weight of being trapped. This isn't because they don't care. It's because their nervous system has been trained to see pressure as danger. Imagine someone holding a bird in their hand. If they squeeze too tightly, the bird panics. That's how an avoidant feels when someone tries to force emotional intimacy faster than they can handle it. The truth is, avoidants value space, not because they want distance, but because they need to feel safe before they can move closer. The mistake most people make is interpreting that space as rejection. It's not. It's their breathing room. It's the place where they recalibrate, regulate, and remind themselves that they won't lose themselves in the relationship. Think about it when someone says, "I need space." Most people hear, "I don't want you." But for an avoidant, "I need space" actually means, "I need to feel like myself again so I can come back to you." The irony is, the more you respect that space without panicking, the more secure they feel and the faster they return. What avoidants actually want from you in this moment is trust. They want to know that you trust them enough to let them step back without punishing them. They want to know you won't guilt trip them, won't chase them, won't spiral into insecurity. Because when you hold steady, they begin to see that love doesn't have to mean suffocation. And here's the real shift. When you stop fighting their need for space, you stop playing tug of war. Suddenly, you're not on opposite sides pulling against each other. You're on the same side, holding the rope together. That's the moment their defenses lower. That's the moment they start moving closer, not because you pulled them, but because they feel safe enough to walk toward you on their own. So the first thing avoidants truly want from you is respect for their space. Not fear, not panic, not accusations, just calm, grounded acceptance that says, "I trust you, and I'll be here when you're ready." That kind of trust doesn't push them away. It pulls them in. Another thing avoidants want from you, though they'll rarely admit it, is emotional safety without interrogation. Let's be honest, when someone you care about pulls back, it's natural to want answers. You want to know why. You want to know what's wrong. You want to know if you did something. That's the pursuer's instinct. Close the gap, fix the tension, find clarity. But to the avoidant, constant questioning feels like emotional surveillance. It feels like every thought, every mood, every choice has to be explained, defended, justified. And for someone who already struggles to open up, that weight can feel unbearable. Here's the paradox. Avoidants want to be understood, but they don't want to be interrogated. They long for a partner who can hold space for them without demanding constant explanations. They want someone who trusts the connection enough to allow silence without assuming disaster. They want the freedom to reveal their feelings at their own pace, not on command. Imagine this: you're in a room with someone who's visibly upset. You ask, "What's wrong?" They say, "Nothing, I'm fine." You ask again. You keep pressing. Suddenly, the walls go up even higher. Why? Because your pressure, though well-intentioned, feels like intrusion. Now flip it. What if, instead of pressing, you simply sit beside them and say, "I'm here if you want to talk." No pressure, no force, just presence. That's what avoidants crave. What they actually want is safety to come forward on their own. They want the reassurance that if they're not ready to talk, you won't punish them with silence, anger, or withdrawal of your own. They want to know that their hesitancy won't be met with rejection, because deep inside, avoidants carry the fear that their emotions are too much, that their needs will be dismissed, or that their vulnerability will be used against them. So, when you provide safety without interrogation, you create a rare and powerful experience for them. Suddenly, they don't feel like they're being hunted down emotionally. They feel like they have permission to show up imperfectly. And here's the beautiful twist: the less you demand their openness, the more they begin to offer it freely. Think of it like coaxing a shy animal out of hiding. If you chase it, it runs. If you sit calmly and patiently, eventually curiosity pulls it toward you. Avoidants are the same. They want a partner who knows how to sit in emotional stillness, who can say with their energy, "I accept you as you are, whether you're expressive right now or not." This doesn't mean you ignore your needs. It doesn't mean you tolerate endless stonewalling. It means you practice balance, express what you need in a way that invites rather than demands. Instead of saying, "Why won't you just tell me how you feel?" you say, "I'd love to understand you more whenever you feel ready." That shift creates safety. That shift says, "I'm not here to corner you. I'm here to connect with you." Avoidants want connection, but they need to feel like their boundaries are respected in the process. They don't want to feel interrogated. They want to feel invited. They don't want to feel hunted. They want to feel welcomed. And when you learn to create that environment, something extraordinary happens. The avoidant begins to trust that opening up won't cost them their autonomy. And that's when vulnerability flows, not forced, not pried open, but offered as a gift. So the second thing avoidants truly want from you is the ability to provide safety without interrogation. Give them space to breathe, space to choose, and space to open up on their own terms. And you'll discover that beneath those walls is a heart that wants to be seen more than anything. Avoidants want something that most people never think about: love without judgment. One of the deepest fears avoidants carry is the fear of being criticized, misunderstood, or shamed for the way they handle love. Think about it. Many avoidants grew up in environments where their needs weren't honored. Maybe they were told to toughen up, stop being so sensitive, or figure it out on your own. Others may have been judged when they did open up, leading them to believe that vulnerability equals weakness. So what do? They armor up. They hide their true selves behind walls of independence, detachment, or control. But here's the truth behind that armor. Avoidants secretly long for a place where they can let their guard down without being judged. They want to know that when they show a flicker of emotion, you won't roll your eyes, mock them, or label them as cold. They want to know that when they stumble in communication, you won't say, "See, this is why you're impossible to love." What they crave at their core is compassion. Let's break it down with a simple example. Imagine an avoidant partner finally shares a vulnerable detail about their past. It might not come out perfectly. It might sound detached, vague, or even abrupt. But in that moment, they're handing you something precious, a piece of their inner world. If you respond with criticism, impatience, or sarcasm, that door slams shut, and it might take months, even years, to open again. But if you respond with warmth, curiosity, and non-judgment, suddenly, the avoidant learns something new. It's safe to be real here. I won't be punished for my truth. What avoidants actually want from you is acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean tolerating everything without boundaries. It means meeting them where they are without harsh judgment. It means seeing the human behind the defense mechanism. It means recognizing that their silence isn't apathy, their distance isn't cruelty, and their hesitation isn't rejection. It's protection. And here's the beauty: when you offer love without judgment, avoidants don't just soften, they flourish. They begin to believe that love can be a place of healing instead of performance. They begin to associate closeness with safety instead of shame. They begin to test the waters of vulnerability, offering more of themselves piece by piece, because they finally feel like those pieces won't be used against them. Think about how powerful that is. Every single one of us has parts of ourselves we're afraid to reveal. For avoidance, those parts often stay locked away indefinitely unless they encounter someone who can hold space without criticism. And when they do, it feels like a miracle. It feels like love in its purest form. So how do you give love without judgment? You start by listening more than lecturing. You respond with curiosity instead of condemnation. You shift from saying, "Why can't you just?" to saying, "Help me understand what that feels like for you." You practice empathy. You remember that growth is messy and progress is not linear. Avoidants want a partner who can see their effort, not just their flaws. They want someone who can celebrate small steps, not demand giant leaps. They want someone who says, "I see you trying and that matters," instead of "you'll never change." Because the truth is, avoidance can and do change, but only in an environment where judgment is replaced with encouragement. So the third thing avoidants truly want from you is love without judgment. They don't want perfection, they don't need pressure, and they don't expect you to erase their struggles. What they want is a partner who can hold both their strengths and their weaknesses with grace. When you give them that, you create a love that doesn't just survive, it transforms. Another thing avoidants deeply want from you is consistency without chaos. You see, for many avoidants, inconsistency is one of the biggest triggers. If love feels unpredictable, unstable, or like it might vanish at any moment, their defense mechanisms shoot up like armor. They shut down, withdraw, or emotionally check out, not because they don't care, but because they've learned to protect themselves from disappointment. Think about it. If you grew up never knowing if love was safe or reliable, you learn to rely only on yourself. You build a world where you don't have to count on anyone, because depending on others feels dangerous. That's why avoidants often come across as hyper-independent. They've trained themselves not to rely on anyone but themselves. But deep down, they don't want to carry that weight forever. Deep down, they long for a relationship where they can finally relax, where they can exhale, where they can trust that love won't vanish the second they let their guard down. What avoidants actually want is someone consistent, not perfect, not flawless, consistent. They want to know that your words align with your actions. They want to know that if you say you'll show up, you do. They want to know that if you promise stability, you deliver it. Because when you prove over and over again that you're reliable, something extraordinary happens. Their nervous system begins to relax. Their walls begin to lower. Their fear begins to soften. Here's the mistake many people make. They confuse intensity with intimacy. They think avoidants want fireworks, grand gestures, or dramatic declarations. But what avoidants really want is steadiness. They want someone who's calm when they're distant, present when they return, and consistent no matter what. They want to know that you won't punish them for their patterns, but you also won't abandon them when things get hard. Imagine it like this: you're building a bridge. Every act of consistency is another plank laid down. At first, the avoidant might not trust it. They might test it cautiously. But as you keep showing up, as you keep proving stability, the bridge becomes solid. Eventually, they step onto it fully, knowing it will hold their weight. That's how trust is built, with quiet consistency, not emotional chaos. Now, consistency doesn't mean you erase yourself. It doesn't mean you become passive or allow them to dictate the entire relationship. It means you become grounded, you set healthy boundaries, you show up with balance. You let your actions speak louder than your fears. Consistency is not about giving up your needs. It's about expressing them calmly, steadily, and predictably. Avoidants want to know that you won't suddenly switch from love to anger, from warmth to coldness, from commitment to rejection. The unpredictable roller coaster is what scares them most. But when they encounter someone who is emotionally steady, someone who can hold the storm without becoming the storm, they find something they've been craving their whole lives: security. And here's the powerful truth. Once avoidants feel secure, they stop running. They stop hiding. They stop preparing for abandonment. Instead, they lean in. They start investing. They begin to believe that love can be a safe harbor, not a battlefield. So, the fourth thing avoidants truly want from you is consistency without chaos. Not perfection, not intensity. Consistency. When you show up steadily, when you align your actions with your words, when you refuse to play games, you give them something priceless: the ability to believe in love again. And when they believe in love, they give more of themselves than you ever imagined possible. What avoidants want, perhaps more than anything, is to be loved for who they are, not who you want them to become. This is one of the most overlooked truths about avoidant love. So many relationships crumble because one partner sees the avoidant not as they are, but as a project. They think, if I can just fix them, heal them, change them, then everything will be perfect. But let me tell you something. Avoidants can sense when love is conditional. They can feel when you're secretly trying to mold them into an image that fits your ideal, and nothing makes them retreat faster. Avoidants don't want to feel like they're constantly failing some invisible test of worthiness. They don't want to be measured against unrealistic expectations. They don't want to feel like love is a reward they earn only if they behave the right way. What they long for beneath all the walls and defenses is acceptance. The kind of acceptance that says, I see you, I value you, and I love you as you are, even as you grow. Now, this doesn't mean avoidants don't need to grow, or that you should ignore unhealthy behaviors. Growth is essential in any relationship, but there's a massive difference between growth that's inspired by love and change that's demanded out of pressure. When you love someone as they are, you create the emotional safety for growth to happen naturally. But when you pressure someone to change just to meet your expectations, you create resistance. Think about it. When someone feels fully accepted, they're more likely to open up, to take risks, to lean into love. Why? Because acceptance says, you are safe here. And safety is what allows vulnerability. Safety is what allows change. Safety is what allows intimacy to deepen. What avoidants actually want from you is to know that your love isn't conditional. They want to feel that they don't have to perform, pretend, or perfect themselves to earn your care. They want to know that even on the days when they're quiet, withdrawn, or unsure, you still value their presence. They want to know that your love is not a transaction, it's a commitment. This doesn't mean you should erase your needs or accept harmful patterns. It means you communicate your needs without making them feel like they're unworthy as they are. It means you honor their individuality instead of trying to rewire their personality. It means you love them enough to say, you're enough right now, and I'll walk with you as you grow. Imagine how healing that is for someone who spent a lifetime believing they had to toughen up, shut down, or hide their emotions just to be accepted. Imagine what it feels like to finally encounter a love that doesn't demand, doesn't pressure, doesn't shame, but simply holds space. For the avoidant, that kind of love is revolutionary. And here's the paradox: when avoidants feel loved for who they are, they actually become more willing to grow. They become more open to change, more curious about intimacy, more motivated to show up differently. Why? Because they're no longer fighting to prove their worth. They're no longer running from judgment. They're no longer defending against rejection. Instead, they're inspired by love to expand into the best version of themselves. So the fifth thing avoidants truly want from you is unconditional acceptance. They don't want to feel like your project. They don't want to be fixed. They don't want to be reshaped into someone else's idea of love. They want to be seen, valued, and cherished exactly as they are, while being supported in the natural growth that love inspires. When you give them that, you're not just loving the avoidant, you're healing the avoidant. And in that healing, they'll give you a kind of love that's deeper, more committed, and more authentic than anything you've ever experienced. The final thing avoidants truly want from you is this patience that proves love is steady, not fleeting. Avoidants move slowly when it comes to intimacy, not because they don't care, not because they don't feel, but because trust is a process for them, not an instant reaction. They don't fall headfirst into love like a pursuer might. They dip their toes, step back, observe, and test whether the water is safe. To many people, this looks like hesitation, disinterest, or even rejection. But in reality, it's their way of making sure that love won't drown them. And here's the truth. What avoidants want most is a partner who's willing to walk at their pace, not drag them into vulnerability before they're ready. They want someone who says, I'm here for the journey, not just the destination. They want to feel like they don't have to rush to meet your timeline or collapse under the weight of your urgency. Because nothing shuts down an avoidant faster than feeling pressured into intimacy they're not ready for. Patience doesn't mean waiting in silence while ignoring your needs. Patience means giving the relationship room to breathe. It means understanding that progress with an avoidant often comes in small steps forward, followed by occasional steps back. It means recognizing that the back and forth isn't failure, it's part of their healing process. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it, you nurture it, you trust the process. Eventually, the roots take hold and the growth becomes visible. Avoidant love works the same way. If you demand results too quickly, you uproot the progress. But if you have patience, their love deepens in ways that last. What avoidants actually want from you is the reassurance that you won't give up the moment it gets hard. They want to know you can handle the slow burn instead of chasing fireworks. They want to see that you're not just there for the easy moments, but for the moments when they wrestle with their fears, when they step back, when they're uncertain. They want to know that your love has endurance, not just excitement. And here's the powerful paradox. When avoidants feel your patience, they actually speed up. When they see that you're not panicking over their pauses, when they realize you're not going to abandon them, if they take their time, they feel safer to open up faster. Because patience builds trust, and trust builds intimacy. But patience doesn't mean passivity. It means you keep showing up with clarity, with groundedness, with quiet persistence. You don't chase frantically, and you don't withdraw in anger. You stay steady. That steadiness is the proof avoidants are looking for. They're not testing your love to be cruel. They're testing it to see if it's real. They've been let down before, and what they want is proof. Proof that this time it's safe to invest. So, the sixth thing avoidants truly want from you is patience that proves love isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's a commitment. They want to know that your love is strong enough to last through hesitation, strong enough to survive their walls, and strong enough to wait for their heart to fully step forward. And when you give them that patience, when you walk with them instead of dragging them, you'll witness something remarkable. The avoidant stops running. They stop doubting. They stop questioning whether love can be trusted, and in its place, they begin to give you the kind of loyalty, devotion, and depth that only comes when someone realizes this love is steady, this love is real, this love is safe. We've traveled deep into the heart of avoidant love, and what we've uncovered is this. Avoidants are not cold, distant, or unloving. They are cautious, protective, and deeply afraid of losing themselves in love. What they want isn't complicated, it's human. Space without abandonment, safety without interrogation, love without judgment, consistency without chaos, acceptance without conditions, and patience that proves your love is steady. When you see these truths, you stop fighting their defenses and start creating a love that feels like home. Avoidants are not running from love itself. They're running from pain, from the ghosts of their past, from the belief that intimacy is dangerous. But when you bring them the kind of love that doesn't push, doesn't pressure, and doesn't punish, you flip the story. Suddenly, their walls become doors. Their distance becomes an invitation to trust. Their hesitation transforms into devotion. This is why your role is so powerful. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to play games or lose yourself in the process. What you need is the courage to show up with a different energy. Calm, grounded, and unshakable. When you embody that, the avoidant no longer sees love as a trap. They see it as a safe space. And when they finally feel safe, they give more of their heart than you ever thought possible. And let's be honest, it's not just about them. These principles transform you too. They make you stronger, more secure, more resilient. They teach you how to love without fear, how to connect without control, how to hold space without losing yourself. That's the gift of understanding avoidant love. It doesn't just change your relationship, it changes you. So remember this, avoidants don't want to be fixed. They want to be loved. They don't want to be chased. They want to be trusted. They don't want chaos. They want steadiness. And when you offer those things, you don't just reach their heart, you rewrite the story of love itself. And that is where real transformation begins. Thank you for being here with me today and for opening your heart to a deeper understanding of avoidant love. Remember, love isn't about forcing someone to change. It's about creating the kind of connection where change becomes possible. It's about patience, acceptance, and the courage to hold steady even when things feel uncertain. If today's message touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because the truth about avoidant love is not just knowledge, it's healing. And the more we spread that healing, the more relationships we can save, transform, and uplift. Until next time, keep showing up with strength, with compassion, and with patience. That's how love grows. That's how walls fall. That's how hearts finally open. Thank you and goodbye for now.